I always think about how we're walking around and there's these little creatures around us that we don't even acknowledge, like ants and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
That probably have their own society. Like the only people that are acknowledging them are the scientists and the people that bring us like Blue Planet and
Mm-hmm.
planet Earth and otherwise I don't know that we'd have an appreciation for the tiny lives that are so small and microscopic that are still
Yeah.
important.
Perhaps I could use this as an excuse to go to those far-off planets with little polka-dotted people if necessary, and be able to talk about love, war, nature, God, sex, all those things that go to make up the excitement of the human condition.
I'm Captain James Kirk.
Captain Kirk.
Of the Starship Enterprise.
And the ineluctable Mr. Spock.
Mr. Spock, my first officer.
Captain Dr. Spock of...
I can't imagine.
Kirk. Of the Starship Enterprise.
Did I ever tell you about the time I saved Captain Kirk's life?
Kirk. Of the Starship Enterprise.
What a blessing to be able to live one's life over again. If the life you've led has left you unfulfilled.
Welcome aboard, listeners, to Humanist Trek. It's a Star Trek podcast about humanism in Star Trek. I'm Sarah Ray.
And I'm Allie Ashmead.
What's the buzz? Tell me what's a-happening. What's the buzz? Tell me what's a-happening. Jesus Christ Superstar. Jesus Christ Superstar.
Nope. Don't know. Sorry.
I love Jesus Christ Superstar. It's crazy because I was a crazy believing Christian back in the day, when my love of musical theater started. And so I had a certain appreciation for it as a believer. And now today I'm like, oh, this is the story of how Judas was the good guy. Like I have a very different, I still love it as a thing because it's, there's a nostalgia, I guess, that plays into that, of course. And but now I see it from a very different perspective, and I still love it. I'm not like, ew, it's a Christian thing. I don't like it. I still love it.
Is there a streaming service or a channel where I can see some of the classic musical theater plays? Because I would love to get into that more. Because that, if I wanted, I would love to see a streaming service where I could see all the Broadway plays like Wicked and Les Mis and all those.
Not that I need one more thing prying for my $5 a month.
I know, right? I know. These extra add-ons I've done, like $5 here, $3. Yeah, they add up.
Mm-hmm. And I think we may be having to cancel some. Like that's where we're at.
Is Dish Network still around?
Oh yeah, I used to sell Dish Network back in the day.
Did you?
I did.
You have to put that dish on your house back in the day.
I feel like the packaged, like, cable style menu programming of old, I feel like that's obsolete in this new age of like streaming, and every fucking studio has their own app.
Yep. And then luckily, like, some of these are included. You can bundle them together and maybe get a tiny bit of a discount, but for the most part, you're going to be paying like 20 different fees for 20 different set of services.
Right. Yeah. So we've shifted away from the bundled programming package model into this single channel a la carte sort of system. So I don't know that, like, so Dish Network still exists. I know it does. And I wonder if they're doing the same, like, programming bundles and stuff that they've always done. And I ask that because I know that cable companies are starting to switch off to some streaming thing too. And I know this because my mother has been bitching about it constantly for a couple of months because they're having to come out and they're changing. She can't just turn the TV on and flip to channel 32 or whatever. She's got to go through now. It's got to have a special plug in the back and blah, 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 whatever.
Oh, man. Yeah, I'd be pissed too.
Yep. Long gone are the days where you just put up a big satellite and
aim it out to space and just get what you want.
Yeah. Like they did in Star Trek, the animated series, season 1, episode 11, the Terratin incident.
Nice.
We got there.
That was rough.
You pointed me to the destination. I wouldn't have got there.
That was the only thing I could think of.
Sir, contact with an object. It's moving toward us.
No visual contact yet.
Deflectors, full intensity.
Mr. Sulu, yes, Captain. Anything on your scanners?
It's coming at light speed.
Collision course. Visual contact.
Anything, over?
All wavelengths dominated by ionization effects, sir.
All engines full stop.
Did you think that this episode was going to have something to do with spiders?
Yeah, because of the name of the planet, Arachna.
Mm-hmm.
Like, why would you name a planet that and not do anything with it? I was like, no, we're going to have spiders.
Yep.
Yes. No, that's not what happened.
Not at all. So this place, Arachna, is a recent supernova that we're coming to observe.
I'm not a scientist.
Just a podcaster.
And I don't play one on TV.
Uh-huh.
But so a supernova,
Mm-hmm.
that's a star exploding. And this is maybe a question for Erin McDonald when she appears on the show. When a star goes supernova, is there anything left? Like, doesn't everything just get vaporized and obliterated and there's maybe debris?
Yeah.
If there's anything.
Right.
But they have arrived to, they've even called it Arachna. So on the screen, it looks like a gray rock, like a burned out moon or something.
Mm-hmm. And they arrive right as it's orgasming. Spock says it's entering a cycle of strongest emissions.
Oh my God. Only you.
Only me.
Only make that sexual.
Uhura picks up some strange interference, maybe a signal of some kind, maybe not. She doesn't really know, but it's coming from the lone planet orbiting the star Cepheus, or Cephas.
Cephas.
They all say it kind of differently.
Like
yeah.
Bocephus. It's apparently it's a single satellite from Cephas, and it's never produced a radio transmission before. And she puts it on speaker for everyone to hear. And Spock is able to determine its transmission is using some sort of interstat code, which apparently has been out of operation for 200 years, and is able to isolate a word pattern. T-E-R-A-T-I-N. Terratin.
Terratin. Now, here's another moment I wish they had given to Uhura instead of Spock. And this is something that they've done great with in all the reboots. As the linguistics expert on the ship, Uhura should have been the one to figure this code out.
Yeah, agree. I didn't think about that, but agree. He always steals her thunder.
Right?
Shut the fuck up. Shut the fuck up, Spock.
Always a man. Anyway, the signal stops just as abruptly as it started, and this is enough of a mystery for Kirk to put the supernova mapping mission on the shelf and change gears. Of course, McCoy is right there to challenge that decision.
The transmission Terratin was transmitted twice, so it doesn't seem to be random. So the probability that somebody might be actually reaching out for help is too high to ignore. So McCoy still thinks it's a waste of time, but Kirk wants to go anyway.
Some time passes, and they arrive at Cepheus, and we see what looks like massive volcanic eruptions shooting off from the planet, like real end time shit.
Mm-hmm.
And Spock shares what data they have from earlier exploration. Class M planet, molten core, mantle and crust entirely crystalline. So Kirk assumes that this is the source of the transmission, something about the way the volcanic eruptions interact with the crystalline structures or something. But then on the planet, we see there's an old C-band satellite dish. Do you remember those? Those are the ones that you could just point at the sky and get a bunch of free channels and shit.
Heck yeah. That's why I was thinking Dish Network.
Yeah. Yeah.
Somebody's getting some mega channels down there. The terrain is also filled with like towers of crystals too. It's dilithium. But then the satellite dish starts to like beam something into space. Just as they're about to settle into an elliptical orbit, Spock senses a disturbance in the force.
As if millions of Vulcans suddenly cried out in terror.
He can't identify it, but it's faint and it's diffused. And he recommends to Kirk, maybe this isn't a good idea. Let's delay orbit until we can analyze it. But then as Kirk is asking for reports from around the ship and all the stations report normal, even Scotty says that the engines are purring like happy kittens. And then the lab animals in sickbay. Wait, what the fuck? When were there ever lab animals in?
This was very like canary in a coal mine to me. McCoy's like, Jim, the mice are fine and the bird hasn't died yet. We're good.
That's exactly what I mean. Like we've never mentioned animals, lab animals, but they've got some gossamer mice that are like see-through, and then they've got some kind of fish that glows, and they call it a halo fish. But they're fine, basically. The animals are fine too. So Kirk feels like, okay, well, it's probably fine, and kind of shoves off Spock's idea to delay.
Eric's is giving a report about the planet's surface and atmosphere when suddenly the Enterprise lights up glowy yellow, and Eric's yells about his eyes. We cut around the ship, showing crew members lit up bright white. We see the C-band dish sending signals, volcanoes erupting, and then just as suddenly, it's over.
Nobody's hurt. Uhura is asking for damage reports, and everything seems to be functioning normally. They're maintaining orbit, but they're on impulse power.
So no injuries, but whatever that was caused a lot of trouble with the warp engines. And when Scotty said, every dilithium crystal connection smashed trying to bypass, this is when I thought, crystals. Oh, fuck. I didn't even think about the dilithium crystals. And I didn't even think about, like, this planet is made of crystal. And there was all this whole, it was right there in front of me the whole fucking time. And I missed it. This is part of a ship we've never seen before, right?
The hangar?
This giant room, and it's something in engineering. Scotty's in there describing these crystals that are all like, there's like 5 or 6 of these giant crystal structures. We've never seen this before.
That's true. That's true. And they're all mangled for some reason. So whatever that beam was just really fucked all the crystals up.
Scotty's describing the crystals as being peeled like oranges. So apparently these are like main circuit crystals, according to the dialogue, is what it suggests. And if we're using crystals for everything, we are fucked. Spock is looking at a console where there's a microscope image of the crystals, and they appear to be forming chains, like molecular chains. And now things start to go sideways. Gabler, still black this week.
Oh, is he black? Okay, is he black this week?
Yep. Pops his head through a doorway, complaining about all their tools are too big to handle. Oh my.
And Scotty's like, what the fuck are you talking about? Wait, I'm coming. It sounds like you're just blathering. And then Kirk and Spock have this exchange. Like, Kirk's like, why are you slumping? And Spock is like, I was about to ask you the same thing. So something weird's going on here. Somebody comes over the tannoy, and he's like, security, somebody help us in the main dining room. Suddenly, all the tables and chairs and everything seems to have been enlarged, and it's just too big for everybody. Everybody's losing their rings, their hairpins, and they're about to panic.
Everything seems to have enlarged, and the camera cuts to Chapel with a thought bubble over her head of a massive vibrating Vulcan dildo.
and what does that look like? Is it just green? I mean, what? Green with some ears?
You can submit your drawings to
that would be amazing.
podcast@humanisttrek.com. Yes, we want to see what a Vulcan peen looks like. There's a smidge of the old Trek sexism here too. The mess officer Briel says, women losing rings and hairpins. Some are near panic.
Yeah, you know how women are.
During this, we see the mess hall, giant tables and all, and then cut to the bridge where everything seems giant there too. Kirk's assumption is that the whole ship has expanded, but Spock points out that it's equally possible that they have all contracted something that is making them shrink. That should be easy to test for, right? Scan me with a tricorder or something and tell me my height.
Right.
During the commercial, they tried to break orbit unsuccessfully, and although they still haven't worked out if they're shrinking or everything else is getting bigger, they have determined the differential is a factor of 0.3. Uhura has been sending SOS calls, and Scotty's team have been replacing parts, but they're not going to be able to keep up. Spock's been studying these waves bombarding the Enterprise, but all he's learned is that it's more complex than he knows what to do with. Eric's is so small, he can't look into the viewfinder anymore. And then the camera cuts to Uhura, and if you're watching along, scrub your Paramount Plus to 8 minutes and 4 seconds as we see Uhura climbing onto her console in the background with her ass in the air. And in the foreground, Spock does a slow turn to look at her.
I didn't notice so I knew she was kind of like sexy, a little bit sexy when she's climbing on the console to reach it, but I didn't notice Spock's. And so now I'm going to have to go back and look at it.
8 minutes, 4 seconds. She's like, I can't reach this dial, Spock. Little help?
Where are those love crystals when you need them?
Right. Shockingly, it's McCoy who has some answers. So we pop down to sickbay where McCoy has a PowerPoint loaded up showing some test tissue.
Not really answers, but just like a possible diagnosis. What was that? Was that like a double helix? What was that PowerPoint?
Oh, it was like an atom, right? With the little spinning
that's right.
neutrons
That's
around it or whatever.
It's an atom.
Protons.
Yeah. But he's determined that they are shrinking and the space between their molecules has been reduced. So they're getting smaller, but they're staying the same weight. And it's obviously something no one's ever seen before. And it's accelerating, according to Spock.
Speaking of our Star Trek science consultants, where's Dr. Noor when we need him? So their weight remains the same because they have the same number of atoms, because all that's happening is the space between the molecules is shrinking. So the molecules are getting closer together. Like
we're compacting, like our bodies are.
I need to know some medical reality behind that, some biological.
I'm pretty sure it's a no. It's a no, Sarah. I mean,
no, but like, okay, so what would happen if that were to happen? Would we like crumple in on ourselves as, you know?
That's a good question. Maybe we can send that to Dr. Noor and say, hey, animated series, episode 11.
Right.
And this is what we see. Maybe we can.
This is like the nerd. No, Allie, this is like the nerd at the convention that stands up with the microphone and like asks their nerdy question about.
I know. I don't want to be that guy.
On the animated series, episode 11.
Get a life.
But nerd minds want to know. We want to know.
So for the shrinking, Spock says this could go on infinitely. And then a series of events happens that leads us to understand this effect is only happening to organic matter. The mice are so small that they were able to fit through the bars and escape their cage. The fish is small too, and then Spock asks Chapel about her bracelet, which looks too large to be comfortable at this point. And we learn here that uniforms are apparently made of algae-based xenolon,
which I don't think is an actual word.
What's a xenolon?
It's not real.
Sounds like a battery brand or like Duracell with xenolon.
Not a real thing. Synthetic algae-based organic fabric, but it's only in the Trek world.
All right. So the uniforms seem to be shrinking with them. And if the uniforms are organic and the people are organic, and that's the only thing that's shrinking, the coral in the fish tank, then it must just be happening to organic matter. The metal bracelet and the meteor rock in the fish tank, none of that shrunk. And now we know that it's affecting organic matter and that it affects spiral molecules like dilithium. What about the double helix spiral of DNA? What would happen when DNA is compacted completely? And McCoy says the strands wouldn't break, they'd just stop winding. So that gives them something to use to calculate the rate of shrinkage and find their limit.
There's a lot of science in here
Sure
that I would
is.
love to know some answers to. Like, is this real? Is the science sound?
Get a light.
So back on the bridge, Spock is going to feed this information into the computer to try to figure out how long they have. Because at some point they're going to get so small that they're not going to be able to mash buttons and do the things.
And what we learn is that in 32 minutes, the crew will be about 1 centimeter tall, at which point they won't be able to control the ship. So 32 minutes on the clock, counting down.
Hey, just long enough to finish the episode.
Sulu and Eric's have comedically erected ladders to climb up to their stations. And Sulu's got an idea. Shoot it!
I know. So he's so small that he is standing next to the dial. He's climbed up on the console and he's standing next to a navigation dial, I think. And he's got an idea to direct phaser fire to the planet. And Kirk says, what are you aiming at, though? So far, all the source studies have shown that the waves are coming from an area as large as 1/6 the planet's surface. So it's only going to waste power, and they don't really have enough power anyway. And Sulu's like, what good will it do? And he's messing with the dial, or he actually trips over something, and he fucking falls from the console, and he breaks his leg.
Where did they get supplies on the bridge as little people to splint this leg?
Get a light.
The magic of it's a cartoon, Sarah.
I don't know, maybe a matchstick. I have no idea. But they splint him up, and then they take him to sick bay.
But the door to the turbo lift won't open because they're too small so the little sensor doesn't detect their movement. Kirk picks up this giant toothpick looking thing from under his chair and waves it at the sensor.
Did we have door sensors in the 70s? I think this is ingenious. But did we have those in the 70s?
I don't know if their motion ones were available. I remember as a kid, remember when you went to the grocery store, the old grocery store, the local hometown, you step on the mat.
Step on the thing.
Yeah.
But
so there was at least that.
Kirk called this the electric eye, which is kind of cool because that technology didn't really exist.
Mm-hmm.
Did the world steal this from Star Trek?
So
anyway.
Flip phones, iPads, it's like so many things have come from Star Trek for sure. Fucking Alexa.
Oh yeah, computer, do this. You're right.
There's a missing scene here that I really wanted. We cut to sickbay, and McCoy is holding a gigantic scanner next to Sulu's broken leg. And the wide shot shows that they're all up on a table. How did they get Sulu up on the table?
Don't know.
I need to see rope rigging and pulleys and shit and weights, counterweights, and the basket where they climb into and they pull them up. That's what I want.
Yeah, nope. And they're using this laser thing, but it's way too big for them. And this is the laser that knits bone back together. But I would think it would still work, but apparently it's too big to work.
As they come in with Sulu and explain, what happened, McCoy's like, all these damn trip and fall injuries, OSHA, which is now a thing.
Yes, because it was after the 70s, I think.
70,
right?
Yeah, 71, I think. And then this was 73. OSHA is going to have a fucking field day with all our trip and fall injuries.
Lots of compound fractures.
Slips, trips, and falls, baby. That's the number one injury in the workplace.
But Chapel has an idea that since the bone knitting laser is too big, we can use the little microscopic laser that we use to heal the middle ear, because hopefully that would be still small. McCoy's like, sure, it'll worth a try. So off she goes to find it on the lab shelf, but she has an accident too. So she gets the instrument. It's still huge, but smaller than everything else. But then she fucking trips over something and falls into the fish tank. It's like a comedy of errors. So she's yelling for help. Kirk goes to help her and jumps up on the table. He manages to find a thread and needle, which I can only my first thought was, what the fuck is a needle and thread doing in the lab?
Yep.
But then I was thinking, well, maybe it's to stitch people up with.
Right, but don't we have magic wand technology that does that now? instead
You're right. A random needle and thread, like a classic needle and thread, is laying in the lab, and he uses that to throw that into the fish tank, and so she can catch onto it, and he saves her life.
Yeah, apparently she was not a very strong swimmer.
Yeah. Kind of like me. I'd be the same. I mean, the only thing I could do to save my own fucking life is to lay on my back and float.
Yeah.
Because I can't tread water for shit.
I can't float for shit.
That I can float. That's it.
Good news, though, she got the micro laser. So they're patching Sulu's broken leg up, and Spock arrives to report on the DNA reduction limits. A factor of 32.9, which Kirk somehow in his head calculates this to mean that they'll get down to 1/16 of an inch tall. And Spock's like, earlier, Jim, I used the metric system. Can we please make up our fucking minds?
Yep. Back again. We're back to inches.
That's bad news because at that size, they won't be able to operate the controls anymore. So Kirk has another idea, beaming down to the planet. Spock confirms he can calculate the center of the wave emissions, and Kirk opens a StarTAC as big as he is. Like he's got to use his whole body to open this thing up. And he calls up Scotty to get to the transporter room. And Scotty asks, well, how many of you are beaming down? Just one, Kirk.
Kirk has an idea to stop this bombardment of the lethal spiroid wave. This is what we're calling it. He's thinking there's got to be something intelligent behind it, and so he's going to just try to communicate with it directly by beaming down. We have no reason to expect success, but we got no other choice because we're going to be teeny tiny in like 15 minutes.
In the transporter room, they've got a whole spool of thread unwound now.
This is the rig you were waiting for.
Yep.
And I thought this was so cute.
So it's so Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. It's so great. There's
Totally.
little tiny crew members crawling around all over the controls, and they've got all this thread wrapped around the three little sliders.
Buttons. Yeah.
Spock has whipped up a tiny StarTAC for Kirk, but its range may be limited. So Scotty sets a return timer. Again, the magic MacGuffin of the transporter just happens to do whatever the script needs it to do.
Right. An automatic return in 10 minutes. That would have come in handy in so many other episodes.
Right.
And so if you were the last person on the ship, you could set an automatic return.
Yeah.
Because I think it was one episode before where if there was no one on the ship to beam you back, then you couldn't get back. But this would have been great.
And another thing, Spock says the transporter remembers the body's molecular structure.
Okay.
So,
hang on. So then why don't you just put everyone through the transporter and then not beam them anywhere? But because they can do that too.
Right.
But they didn't. Anyway, whatever.
Yep. It's what it needs to be for the episode. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, in 10 minutes, when the timer is up, will it beam Kirk back tiny or regular sized? Well, only way to know for sure. So the engineers all heave-ho on the strings and pull the sliders up, and we see Kirk materialize on the planet, and he opens his hand, revealing a teeny tiny StarTAC. So that answers that.
He's normal size now.
Yeah.
The whole time that they were doing the heave-ho, I was thinking, is this how the pyramids were built? Like Stonehenge and all that. It's so cute. Anyway. So he does call back to the ship and says, I'm normal size now. But he's surrounded by volcanic eruptions all over the place. Sadly, an eruption knocks him off his feet and he drops the tiny little communicator, and then it gets buried by some lava.
Nearby, Kirk sees what looks like a miniature model of the Emerald City from The Wizard of Oz. But before he can investigate, the 10 minutes is up and the transporter engages, and he materializes back in the transporter room, appearing to be normal size.
But nobody's there. Or seemingly no one's there. But he eventually gets to the bridge and
there's a missing scene here too.
Oh yeah?
I want him going to the bridge. I want to see this is the kind of shit.
They only got 25 minutes.
I know, but I want to see it. This is the Honey, I Shrunk the Kids comedy bit, right? You would see from the perspective of all the tiny crew people, like running and jumping and dodging out of the way as a gigantic Kirk comes down the hallway.
And he's probably stepping on them and he doesn't even know.
That's what I wanted to see. They could have spared 7 seconds for a cutaway to that.
Yeah. But he finds them on the console, these tiny little people, and he's like, Scotty, is that you? And he's talking in his normal voice, but it's so loud. Scotty's like, Jesus Christ, you're trying to deafen us. And be careful where you're stepping. So he switches to like a softer voice, and he's like, is everyone accounted for? And apparently all but the bridge crew, something happened while Kirk was gone. They were just maintaining their posts when they were beamed away all of a sudden. But everybody else on the ship is fine.
So Kirk orders everyone away from the helm, and we see a short montage of Kirk working controls around the bridge. At the comm station, he sends a message to the inhabitants of that miniature city. Give my crew back or I'll shoot. And he provides a demonstration of this power by firing phasers and decimating a crystalline structure near the city. And you think about like how tall those people would have had to have been. It would have been like a mountain disappearing out here.
Mm-hmm. And he's like, look what I can do. Look what I can do. Do you remember that with Stewart?
No.
Look what I can do. That's Mad TV, I think. Stewart. And he would be like this big child, and he would be like, look what I can do. And all he would do is jump.
Crickets. I got nothing. Crickets.
Someone out there knows. Okay.
Kirk's like, you have 1 minute to comply, or that will be you. And the view screen comes to life. Continuing my Emerald City metaphor, they're all wearing green with yellow accents, so they look kind of leprechaun-y.
I didn't know that. Yeah.
Or like the the munchkins of
munchkins.
Yeah.
The leader of the city is, or I guess his title is Mindant. I don't know that we know his actual name.
Yeah. He sounds suspiciously like Eric's, and that's because Jimmy ran out of voices.
I was gonna say there's only so many ways you can like distort your voice.
Yeah, those two characters sound exactly the same.
But he introduces himself as Mindant of this Emerald City, and he talks about we are people of pride like you are, and we don't normally suffer insult or give apology, but he gives them now because of the damage he's done to the starship. So he's beamed down the bridge crew, and I guess they've informed him of what's happened. He was trying to tell them what was happening on their planet, but our antenna was buried, so we had no choice but to shrink you. and that's their invasion defense. And he's apologizing, and he's like, we've got all this dilithium crystal to replace what you lost. And Kirk, when he demands where his bridge crew is, he shows them they're fine. They're down in the capital of the city.
It looks like they're attending a corporate mixer or something.
Yeah, they're just like having a party. So yeah, it's weird.
Spock fills in the gaps for us. Believe it or not, these are descendants of early Earth colonists, which we thought were lost, and which explains their knowledge of transporters and things like that.
We lose so many people. They have lost ships, whole colonies.
Well, when you think about space, the final frontier, as the, a reflection of westward expansion, you're bound to lose a wagon train or two.
And someone's going to die of dysentery.
Right. The original colonists named this planet Terratin. Get it? Terra like Earth, and then the number 10. Terratin. What's weird to me is earlier when Spock got this message on the comm, and he spelled it Terratin, Terratin. Why would this people have taken the misspelled name as a word that they use for anything?
Spock did say something.
It was an old code, but it checks out.
It was. What do you mean?
Oh, that's a Star Wars thing.
Oh.
Remember when they had the code to get through the defense perimeter or whatever, and and they fly up in the ship they've taken one of the Empire ships, and they fly up to the thing, and they send the authorization codes, and the guy goes, "It's an old code, sir, but it checks out."
I vaguely remember that. So all Spock said was it was just present corruption of their names. It's somehow just over time, maybe, we spell shit wrong or different. Like right now, we used to say people had charisma, but now it's just Riz. So it's them damn teenagers.
This planet's natural Spirad epsilon waves shrank the first colonists, which is why they were presumed lost. And now it's basically a genetic trait, which isn't explained, but we'll just take that as it is.
We're going to have to go with it.
The Mindent explains that they are a proud people, not one to ask for help. Rugged individualists, you might say. But they need help now, and he all but begs Kirk to evacuate as many people as possible. And Kirk's like, well, I can't save anyone without my crew, so get ready to beam up and bring as much dilithium with you as you can. And the Mindent is agreeable to this, gathering the largest crystals in the city.
Man, for a moment, I thought that Kirk was just gonna
dip,
fucking take the crystal and fucking haul ass, but...
So then we see our miniature crew in formation to beam up with these crystals at their feet. These are the largest crystals? Really? They're like the size of boogers. they're tiny little things.
And then when they beam up, the crew is back to their normal size, and their crystals are tiny.
Yeah. On the planet, we see massive cracks forming in the ground, about to swallow the city. And the Mindent asks if they should be preparing to evacuate the planet or preparing to die.
This next scene, I don't understand what happened.
Mm-hmm. It sure seemed like Kirk chose the latter.
Yeah, and maybe they were meant to have us think that. But so Kirk is asking how the helm is, and Sulu, the helm is now responsive. Everybody's back to normal with the size. Subspace radio is now operational. And so when Spock is like, well, what about the people on the planet that are about to be swallowed by lava? He tells Sulu to direct forward phasers at the Terran city and set for pinpoint fire pattern. That's a phaser.
What? Yeah.
That's so unless...
How does that somehow activate a transporter?
Yeah, it somehow did, because once they fire the phaser, they beam the entire city, the little Emerald City, aboard on the transporter pad. So I was like, wait, since he didn't say anything about transporting it, but he just basically fired it. He fired it just the way he fired at the crystal and made it fucking disappear.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Anyway,
how does a transporter beam go through the phasers?
I think we were just made to think that he was going to be a bad guy and just destroy them.
And why? Anyway, maybe we'll come back to that.
Mm-hmm.
In the transporter room, of course, the city is still tiny relative to the Enterprise crew. Those people did not enlarge during transport, and I guess this is that whole, because it's genetic now.
Right. Otherwise, how would they have been able to transport everyone? They had to have a way
to keep them tiny.
To save everyone.
Yeah.
And keeping them tiny was, yeah.
Spock wheels in a macroscope, and Kirk looks into it, welcoming the people of Terratin to the Enterprise. They're going to take them to a new homeworld, Verdanus, which Kirk says is very beautiful, much like Earth. And the Mindent is like, hang on now. We've watched every episode of Star Trek, the original series. Very beautiful, much like Earth. Do we really think that's a good idea? The Mindent names them honorary Terratins, and Spock says, we came rather close to making it more than honorary. To which Kirk replies, yes, I'd say just about a 16th of an inch close. And Spock shakes his head in metric. This episode ends on an unusual captain's log. We don't see that a lot. I don't know if we've seen that before at all.
All he says is that the Lilliputian city, which is a term from, what was that book? The Lilliputs are the little people that were Gulliver's Travels. Is it Gulliver's?
Yes, Gulliver's Travels. Correct.
Okay. So the captain's log The Lilliputian city is to be taken to Verdanus and relocated on a fertile and well-watered plain. Then they will be able to call the Terratin incident closed. That's it.
Okay, I get it now. Lilliput, is the name of a fictional island whose people, the Lilliputians, stand only about 6 inches high. Okay, that makes sense. I wouldn't have known that had we not had this talk and looked it up.
Yeah, I'm just surprised that they made that little reference to Gulliver's Travels.
Yeah.
Boy, I'm sure glad that's over with.
I'm happy the affair is over.
Me too.
A most annoying, emotional episode.
Yeah, but you know, I learned something today.
When dreams become more important than reality, you give up travel, building, creating.
One jealous god, if all this makes a god.
By sparing your helpless enemy, who surely would have destroyed you, you demonstrated the advanced trait of mercy.
Frankly, I was rather dismayed by your use of the term half-breed. You must admit, it is an unsophisticated expression.
I always think about how we're walking around and there's these little creatures around us that we don't even acknowledge, like ants and stuff. That probably have their own society. Like the only people that are acknowledging them are the scientists and the people that bring us like Blue Planet and Planet Earth and otherwise I don't know that we'd have an appreciation for the tiny lives that are so small and microscopic that are still important. I don't know.
Yeah, I like that. It made me think of like sometimes when people lash out, it may on its face seem like an attack, but could really be a call for help. Like sometimes people do drastic things to get your attention.
Absolutely.
And that's what the people on this planet were doing. They were like, somebody's got to fucking save us. And we're taking drastic measures to get your attention.
Right.
So assume good intent when what seems like an attack is there. Stop and think about, is there something else behind that? Is it a call for help in some way? Is there something to the story that you don't know?
Oh, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. I mean, I think so too. It just made me think about size, like the little, the size does matter. I mean, just the
and the
little,
camera cuts to Chapel holding her giant Vulcan dildo.
Oh my. Which we're waiting patiently for a picture for someone's drawing, someone's fan art. But it just like all of the little creatures that we are all different sizes, and just because you're bigger doesn't mean you're more important. Everybody's important.
Let's get right to business.
Fine, I'm authorized to pay an equitable price.
Federation has invested a great deal of money in our training. They're about due for a small return.
Listen, we pay off percentages. We're entitled to a little service for our money, huh?
Is this the way your citizens do business? Their right of petition?
They pay their percentages and the boss takes care of them.
Is there anything else?
Listeners of Humanist Trek at Tanagra, the podcast, it's humor in laughter. Dathon on the Patreon Sea.
Shaka, when the reviews fell. Kahlo, his pledge at Patreon.
Humanist Trek, their content wide. Darmok and Jalad at Patreon. Pledge with arms wide.
Mirab, with your support, your laughter, Temba, his arms open.
Our admirals at Patreon. Russell at the Race of Natara. Ali, her arms with fists open. Peter and Sarah at Lunga. Sherry with sails unfurled.
Patreon.com/humanisttrek, where laughter flows. So Koth, in joyous unity.
I assume you're loitering around here to learn what efficiency rating I plan to give your cadets.
Trainees, to the briefing room. Is that all you gotta say? What about my performance?
Aren't you dead?
I don't believe this was a fair test of my command abilities. There was no way to win.
There's no correct resolution. It's a test of character.
Now, what is that supposed to mean?
I am understandably curious.
May I ask you a question?
Who's been holding up the damn elevator?
Becca's back now with the answer to this week's Starfleet Academy Cadet Challenge question for the Terratin incident. Remind us of the question.
This episode was written by screenwriter Paul Schneider. The idea came from a one-paragraph story written by Gene Roddenberry based on what 17th century piece of sci-fi literature?
Oh, for fuck's sake! I think it's Gulliver's Travels then. But no, but that wasn't 17th century, was it? No.
What were our answers?
Sarah said, I don't know. I don't know who wrote that or when.
Yeah.
And Allie guessed War of the Worlds.
We also got a last-minute listener guest. This guest comes to us from patron Anders.
I might be late again, but this question was so intriguing. I was thinking about how the shuttlecraft are named after 16th and 17th century people, and my first thought was, well, I don't think Copernicus wrote anything sci-fi, but probably Galileo Galilei did. And I sort of remember he may have done one called The Starry Messenger, but the title was Latin or Italian. Anyway, that's my first guess, and I'm sticking with it.
Thanks, Anders.
Thanks, Anders.
How wrong were we and Anders?
You were a little bit wrong, but it's the participation that matters. I'm trying to come up with an idea for a participation trophy for everybody who participates. But
sure. We'll need no participation trophies, you liberal cuck.
Oh my God, I need to go vomit now. I can't believe that noise came out of you. Gross. Oh, why do you do this to me?
What's the right answer?
It was Gulliver's Travels.
Man.
Ah, fuck's sake.
I would never have gotten that.
I mean, I got it now because at the very end. So the thing is, until the very end, they didn't say shit about Lilliputian, Lilliput's.
No, and it was like one throwaway line.
And then I just happened to know. Remember, I knew it was either Journey to the End of the Earth or Gulliver's Travels that had Lilliputs in it. Jesus Christ. She got me again.
Next week, we'll be reviewing Star Trek, the animated series, Season 1, Episode 12, The Time Trap. The Enterprise crew must work with Klingons to escape from a pocket universe. And, big announcement, Dr. Aaron McDonald will be joining us for next week's episode and joins us now for the dumb trivia question game that we play.
That's awesome.
Becca, what's our question for The Time Trap?
In this episode, Kirk and friends meet the Elysian Council. The Elysian Council was the ruling body of Elysia. How many different species that were members of the council in this episode can you name? And because I'm feeling generous, I'll give you a point for every species you can name correctly. There are a possible 11-point total.
Okay. And
oh, crap.
Now peek behind the curtain. We've already recorded the episode. We've already talked about it. We talked about the different races. The challenge will be...
remembering them?
Yes, not looking back at my notes and remembering them. Okay. Are we teamworking this one, or are we doing separate answers?
Teamworking. There's no freaking way I can do it.
Okay, go on.
Can I get some points for knowing that it was at least she mentions that in total there were like between 130 and 140 species, and then I was like, why are there's only like small amount of you represented? How'd that work out? But
they died.
What is this, America? Get out of here.
Yeah.
Your council's all white dudes. What's that all about?
I know.
Okay, we had a Gorn. We had a plant person.
Yeah, I don't remember their
species
race.
name.
No. We had Orion and Tellarite.
Definitely Orion.
Tellarite.
What is the
the sex doll one? I don't know what that one was.
No,
maybe that was a human.
Pig Boy. Was that Pig Boy?
I think that's Tellarite.
That's the Tellarite. But we also had an Andorian.
Andorian, the blue.
Yep.
I'm trying to
and Superman Spock, we weren't sure if he was Vulcan or
Romulan. Or is there one of each?
I think there was another person with ears that did not speak. So I'd say one of each.
Okay. We're at 7, and there's how many? 11? How are we still missing so many?
There was the bug alien one that I always am like, Suliban, but also looks like the alien from Independence Day. In my world, this is the same universe.
There was like, what was the one that was red and it had like the long elongated hexagon kind of head
with
thing?
the
Is that the
vagina
one?
thing on his head?
Yes.
Yeah, that's the one I'm talking about. That's the one that looks like the Independence Day alien.
Oh, vagina head. I don't know. That's because he kind of looked like a vagina.
All right. I think that's all we've got.
All right.
So tune in next week.
I'm going to just say Suliban because I want them to be a Suliban there, but that's it. Yeah.
A what?
A Suliban.
Oh.
Suliban.
We're not to that series yet.
Okay, never heard of it.
Becca is famously the non-Trekkie of the group. Our answers are...
I have, for your answers, because you said something, but you didn't really say it as an answer, but I'm going to give it to you anyway, because I'm feeling generous.
Wow. Okay.
So you have Orion, Gorn, Romulan, Andorian, Human,
yeah.
Vulcan, Tellurite, Phalosian is the plant people.
Oh, Phylos.
Phalosian.
That's right. I should have known that.
Okay.
You weren't supposed to tell us that yet, though.
But that's what you named. I just looked up the plant people.
Oh, so you're going to give it to us.
I'm going to give you that one.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Right.
We've stamped our free square.
Yeah, that's about as generous as I'm going to be the rest of the series, because this is like insanity.
So there's our answers. If you know the missing ones, you know how to play along. Head out to your social media, share this episode with the hashtag Starfleet Challenge. Tell us your answers, and we'll pick out our favorite. Next time on Humanist Trek, Star Trek, the animated series, Season 1, Episode 12, The Time Trap, with our special guest, Dr. Aaron McDonald. You won't want to miss it.
Diftor, hech, smoosma.
Kapla!
Humanist Trek is available wherever you replicate your podcasts. Follow us on all the social medias at Humanist Trek. Become a patron at patreon.com/humanisttrek. Open hailing frequencies to podcast@humanisttrek.com and visit our website, humanisttrek.com. Humanist Trek is a production of Sarah Austin Media.